take me with you. I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and grow.
Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here. I'm Beth, a creator-based coach with CMH Coaching for Life. I'm here today to help you and those you love create a life you feel grounded and at home in. Think of a life where you feel peace, love for those around you, and in a flow with just enough challenge to keep you happy and creating something wonderful. Sounds like magic, but it's not. You can create that life every single day. You can have a life full of love, excitement, hope, and creation. Our mission at CMH Coaching is to flood the earth with light through compassion, mindfulness, and hope. And I'm going to ask a favor of you. If you like what you see and hear today, think of someone you know that would enjoy and benefit from this message. Our mission is to flood the world with compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Share this with them. But for now, this is time just for you. So settle into whatever you're doing and enjoy this time with the girls, where we create that one awesome, amazing, perfect life every one of us is seeking.
And I know.
We're going to really discuss next the feelings, the grittiness of uncertainty. Okay. And I know we all have felt this. So uncertainty is a state of being where something is either unknown, not decided, or both, relative to a circumstance that causes us stress or pain. It makes us feel vulnerable. So it's not comfortable, doesn't feel good. No. And I picked this picture because when I am in that state, this is how I feel. Everything seems dark. My head is down, So I really love this picture. I think it portrays a lot of what it can feel like being in this state, what it can feel like. You guys may have a different experience. In this state, there is no sense of resolution, which adds to the distress that you feel. There's a lack of relief. You feel powerless, stuck, no sense of control, completely at the mercy of the circumstance. It's then easy to slip into despair. And from despair comes hopeless desperation. The most common secondary feeling to experience as a result of uncertainty is desperation. When have you found yourself in this state of being, in uncertainty? Anybody want to share?
I'll just bring it right up. It's been on my brain ever since I saw the first slide. My husband just retired. You're talking serious uncertainty. Yeah. And so just the not having the daily routine anymore is a huge difference, a big shift. I loved my routine. It was great. And now I love to say, everywhere I go, there you are.
And I'm sure there's other things that came with that decision that he made.
Yeah. Well, and he's got a lot of uncertainty as well. He was used to doing a 9 to 5. It's a big shift.
So I want to point out something here about uncertainty, that when we find ourselves in uncertainty, there's like two ways that we get in this state. One, by choice. We've made a decision to step out of our comfort zone or create something or do something different. And others, we've been thrusted into it. It's not of our control. It's not of our choice. And the biggest one that we've all experienced this because this is life. But the biggest example that I remember that I could share that was like relevant to this was COVID. Talk about big uncertainty and change in our lives. And my story with COVID, because I have health issues, and especially when it comes to diseases, I don't have a spleen. So I'm in that category that if I get sick, I could die. And I have been in the hospital with pneumonia in the ICU, and I've been in the hospital with, remember H1N1, the swine flu? I caught that and it put me in the hospital, and that was a virus. And so when this came out, I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die, because there was this uncertainty of how my body would react, but also just how large and how big it was. And so what happened with me with COVID was, because I have this issue with my body, I follow online a lot of I hope I'm saying it right, epidemiologists, people who study diseases. And so when the flu season, because I always have to be careful with flu season. So when the flu season comes out, they always will watch how it travels through the world. And then they'll say, okay, this is a really bad one. So I can do things that I can prepare myself to do necessary things to keep myself as safe as possible. And so I was watching when COVID was coming. And so I was the girl that had the stock of toilet paper already before it happened. I was the girl that had a stock of food before, because I knew that with my body, there was a possibility I was going to have to just kind of isolate myself. So some of the points about my story that I liked is, or I want to point out is, I listened and I prepared what I could prepare. I could not prepare for every eventual outcome with COVID, but I did what I could. So when things did happen, I had taken out some of the uncertainty of certain situations. Like, I did not have to wonder where and what I was going to use to go to the bathroom. It's like those type of things. I didn't have to wonder and worry about food because I'd already, had taken care of those things. So there is a way to help us have less uncertainty, less anxiety when we go through life, and that's prepare for certain things. But we can't prepare for every eventuality. The other thing that I noticed in my journey with COVID to, understand more about uncertainty, and this is all because I was looking back, okay, was that whole state of being in anxiety and fear because of the virus. I'm like, I knew my body, but I didn't know my body completely. So there was this possibility that I could be one of those that ended up in the hospital on a ventilator. So there was this whole months and months and months of living in this state of stress, anxiety, that I tried my best to navigate it with the Lord and with other things. But honestly, when I finally got the Delta strand, I did get the vaccine, but I caught the Delta strand, and honestly, I was like, oh, phew, finally I can figure, because I hated living in that state of anxiousness about it. And it was, and I was able to my body was able to take care of it. It was horrible, but it was totally fine. So that was my experience with a large state of uncertainty. Now, granted, we didn't have other things we had to deal with because my husband had a government job. And so his job was stable. So at least, it's like, I can't even imagine trying to navigate everything that everybody had to navigate with COVID. So there was some things that, in that state of being, because I couldn't control my circumstances, I had no idea what the outcome was going to be. And I was living in a state of fear. So that's a story about me being in that state, and kind of through more of these slides, I'm going to be showing you what I learned about myself, but also later on what I learned on how I could go back, and next time I have another uncertain moment or insecurity, I can use these tools. But what did you do when you had a big state of uncertainty? I want to hear some of your stories.
This is Andrea. I'll share one.
Okay.
So in fact, your COVID story brought this up for me, because this was an experience that before COVID, or right as COVID was starting, we had a lesson on spiritual memories, and I think God brought this one back to me, and it gave me a lot of comfort during COVID. And so it's an experience that I think has helped me through a similar certainty of uncertainty like you've talked about, because I also have some health issues. But this was a very small, short experience, but I feel like it taught me so much. But I was I'd gone up to visit my sister in New Jersey, and she wasn't there. And so I ended up, she got caught in Europe, I think, on a flight attendant thing I didn't know. So I was up there waiting for her out in her driveway, and she wasn't coming home, and I was like, okay, I didn't know she got stuck, and so I was kind of just stuck. So I decided to go do some genealogy for the day in upstate New York, and I drove back to New Jersey like late that night, and she still wasn't home. And we live up this really big hill and up a big driveway. And as I was sitting there, it started to blizzard
Oh, wow.
unexpectedly. And it started to blizzard so fast, and it was very late at night. I was by myself up there, no one's coming home. And it started to blizzard so fast that I very soon got stuck up here on the top of my hill and up on the top of the driveway. And it actually was like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's snowing so hard. But my sisters will know, like, our driveway was actually at the time like just hard to navigate, at least for me. I'm not a super great driver either. And I very quickly got to the point where I was stuck at the top, and I didn't know how to get down my driveway and down my hill. And I also realized I was almost out of gas. And so I had totally just gotten into this circumstance unexpectedly all of a sudden that it very quickly became life-threatening. Because if I had run out of gas and I'm out there in the middle of the night in the cold, and I just was like very scared all of a sudden of this uncertainty. And I remember at the time, of course, praying really hard, and I'm like, Heavenly Father, help me. And maybe you'll understand this, because when I prayed, it all of a sudden started blizzarding harder. And my immediate reaction of like this uncertainty is like, oh no, you have that momentary doubt. And you're like, wait, is God helping me? Oh no, maybe what did this not work? Right? Like, that's just, you can't help it. It's like this thing. And I remember at the time, when that happened, just being in this place of fear, when all of a sudden it looked like it was getting worse, and just exerting every ounce of faith I had. And I remember getting there and just praying and be like, Heavenly Father, I love you. I know you're there helping me. And at the moment I said that, this peace just washed over the car. And the Spirit told me that God was building me an igloo. And what had been a very difficult circumstance that tried my faith when it looked like it was snowing harder, all of a sudden became clear to me that it was God's answer and a miracle to my prayer. And it snowed so hard, it covered my entire car, and just the little bit of heat in my car made enough to melt it and then freeze it, or it did create an igloo for me where I was able, when I was almost out of gas, able to turn off my car and sleep in complete warmth for the entire night. And that just gave me this small little experience, just this incredible like comfort that God also brought that back to me during COVID. And it's like this concept that God can build us igloos gave me so much peace in that time of uncertainty. So thanks. My story.
That is beautiful.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because you brought out so many points that we'll be bringing out later in it. But it's like sometimes we don't see what is being given to us. We are so I guess like just white knuckling our own outcome, how we think it should be, that we don't see the miracles that are happening or the possibilities around us. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. And I love what you called spiritual memories. I'm going to bring that up later on too. So, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else have a story they want to share on what they did in a state of uncertainty? And you know what? I'm going to be sharing later on the ones that weren't beautiful like hers. So feel free. Yeah.
I think Rachel has one.
I do have one. So I had a similar circumstance during COVID. My dad has leukemia, and it was very triggering for the same reason that you talked about with yours. I thought, he gets it, he's dead in my mind, right? Like, so here this virus is. He has a weak immune system. He's had leukemia now for almost 16 years. So anyway, I was living in a constant fight or flight kind of situation. And I'd calm myself down and pray about it and then it'd get worked up again. And then it wasn't, shout out to Beth, because I did an imagery over it. And the imagery, I was never the same in it after that. And my dad ended up getting COVID and he handled it like a champ. And I just realized like all that was happening was, I was unnecessarily stressing and stressing and stressing. And it was exhausting. And she helped me find some peace that never left me. And so I was really grateful for that. And right now I'm in an uncertain situation where my dog just had a tumor tested, and I'm hoping that she just gets her leg removed. So 7 days, I find out if she's gonna,
Yeah. And there's the uncertainty.
And there's the all of those big feels, and
Yeah.
and it's also actually a perfect transition into the next slide, because with those big feels, there comes a story that you're telling yourself about the outcome. Okay, and multiple stories. I'm so good at making up.
Oh, we are gifted storytellers.
Stories.
Yes.
But they don't serve me. But let's go to the next slide. So this is one of my stories when I'm in uncertainty. Like I said, to me, it's almost like this balance where like I have, like I can really have, I'm doing this, that's great, I'm using all the tools, Heavenly Father's with me, I'm doing it. And then there are these times I'm just like, I'm off the deep end. I've hit the panic button. And this is one of my stories. Beth, you want to tell everybody my story?
Well, this looks like my story of everything is going to end and I'm just going to go die under a bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It's that story of doom and gloom and living under the bridge. Okay. This is another one of my stories. I can't handle this. I'm drowning. It's above my head. I feel like I'm the wave. It's like everything is happening to me. This is another one of my stories. Okay. And I don't know, some of you guys are going to have similar stories or not so similar. So please share as we're going. So another one of my stories. I am going to make this happen. I'm so determined. I'm pulling and pulling, pulling. So I love this one. This little kid it's going to happen for him. Yeah. So my will, it's going to happen. My story, it's got to be this way. Another one of my stories. I'm predicting all of the possibilities in the future. And that keeps me scared because they're always, and we don't predict the future, but our mind does that. Our mind is really good at creating that for us. It's another one of my stories, another thing I do. And this is usually my other story. I'm the little one, okay?
You're the little one?
I'm the little one. I'm fighting as hard as I can against something that is just not moving, and my face is in the stinky part of it, and I've got a wedgie. It's just not comfortable.
Not happening.
But why am I still doing it?
Because of the kid with the tug of war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are my stories. Anybody else have a story that how they show up sometimes?
Actually, I had something we're still kind of in the middle of it. It's more, it's my sister, her situation, but I feel like I'm walking through it with her. I became aware a few months ago, and as we receive more knowledge, it appears that she's a victim of sex trafficking.
Oh my.
But she doesn't remember. They wipe out her memory, so she doesn't remember. But she keeps gaining more and more evidence. And it was, the more I learned, the worse it sounded. I mean, every time I'd heard something else, it was just like, I just can't believe how evil and awful this is and how sophisticated. And I was just feeling so much anxiety and helplessness of how to help her. And she was trying to figure out what to do. And she couldn't be home and be safe. And finally, was it last weekend? I think it was, or the weekend before. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was last weekend. I asked everybody in the family to fast. I asked all her kids. I mean, I contacted a lot of people individually to ask them to fast and pray for her. And that it was on a Sunday that later that day, she sent me a text and she said, well, I received a blessing from a man who's a patriarch. And she said, I also had a little miracle. And then I asked her the next day, we actually talked about it. And she said that the man the patriarch gave her, it wasn't a patriarchal blessing, but it was just a priesthood blessing. Told her that she would be guided to the right people and that she would, people would be brought to justice. And then he personally knew the person who is the district attorney over sex trafficking in the state of Utah. And, but it's just like all of a sudden I just felt more comforted. She was finally in a place she was safe. She's on a cruise right now, so I know she's safe. And it was such a relief. It was just like, oh, but it was just so hard when people they kept talking about things and would stir things up, and I had a hard time sleeping, and it was just plaguing my mind. But just finally I thought, okay, what can I do? This is the only thing I can do is to have this fast. And it really, I think it helped her, and I think it helped me. I think it helped everyone because it's so upsetting, so disturbing. And anyway, it's not resolved yet, but there's hope.
Yeah. What I love about what you're telling us, Carolyn, is that we have so many amazing tools with the gospel that can take the sting out of some of this stuff that I really don't. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are not in the gospel, and I'm like, how are you managing life? Because like you said, you had priesthood blessing, you had prayer, you had fasting, all these things that can help us on this like inner level that just, I don't know, just sometimes just having these like little tips and tricks that, that don't work, because we have to go deeper. We have to have the Lord. We have to have the atonement. And as we start to, and I keep using the word navigate life, and I want us to like
Lord
change that. But yes, on this journey that we're having all these experiences, and we see other people have experiences, and we have these tools. That's the one thing that I know Beth and I constantly talk about as we coach people and help people, that how do people do this without
the gospel of Jesus Christ?
I hear you. And I'm really glad that she is very spiritually mature. I mean, it's and I know that it's through prayers that she's not fallen apart, because she really should be just a basket case. She should be shut, just in her room, with all that's happened with her. And the fact that she's still functioning is just a testimony that she's receiving divine help. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Can somebody read that for me?
I'll do it for you. The circumstances that you are experiencing are not the cause of your suffering. The cause of your suffering is the fact that you think that what is happening should not happen or is not supposed to be happening. What's your story?
What's your story?
One of the things that the Lord taught me, I was serving in Relief Society presidency many years back, and I was really nervous about my role in a particular event. The Spirit just quietly said to me, don't make more of it than it is. And I had been spiraling and trying to solve all of the things that I thought might happen and telling myself scary stories. And so one of my biggest comforts for myself is when I start into my story is don't make more of it than it is. End your scary story. Just end it. Yeah.
Or change the story.
Or change it. Yeah. You could
going back to I'm going to call it the car igloo story.
I know, for Andrea, that was such a cool thing. The Lord's building me an igloo.
Yes, because, she was so, upset and like fearful because she was thinking it was worse and she's going to die, but the Lord was doing something for her. And when she realized that, from what I understand, your story changed and you were able to sleep in comfort and be okay. So this is, I think, and this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where I think we get stuck a lot in our uncertainty and in our circumstances and the pain that it's causing us and the suffering that we think that it's causing us because of the story we're telling ourselves about it. I learned the best equation that has changed my the way I look at things is from the Mindful Self-Compassion, Kristen Neff and Germer, and I took their course. And the equation is pain plus resistance just equals suffering. And so if you don't want to suffer, you can't take the pain out, but you can take the resistance out. You can change that resistance. And sometimes the biggest shift you can make is changing your story. And that can change the resistance to it. But I just, when that clicked in my brain, I was like, oh my gosh, I do have power to change this and change your story. Anybody else want to comment on this? Okay, so the next slide, Beth is gonna tell us a little bit about the author behind this next slide.
This is a surprise. Oh, the 4 fearful assumptions. Okay. So Lissa Rankin was an OB-GYN, gifted doctor, very empathetic, very kind, very sweet with her clients. And she had an active practice where she was actually in residency, I believe is what was happening. And then she grew into an active practice. But she, in her book, Anatomy of a Calling, explains how she discovered what her calling is. And she does it in a very dramatic way by telling this story. And if you go listen to it, I'll just warn you now, it's really dramatic. The story
Kleenex is with you.
Yeah, of a day or two in the life of this OB. But then she goes on and she talks not only about the anatomy of a calling, but also she wrote another book called The Fear Cure after the anatomy of a calling. So in The Fear Cure, she shares 4 fearful assumptions. And these are the assumptions. And you guys see it. I'm sure you've already read it while I was talking to you. You can see immediately if you believed uncertainty was safe, or uncertainty was normal, or uncertainty was growing, or uncertainty was learning, it would completely change the way you think of it. Yeah. Is that what you wanted, Jen?
Yeah. Will you read the bullet points?
Yeah, I'll read the rest. Okay. So I can't handle losing what I cherish. To me, that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
That's the I'm going to go live under a bridge story. It's a hostile universe. Isn't it attributed to Einstein that the most important decision we make is whether we live in a friendly or a hostile universe?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's attributed to him. And I'm all alone. And we know that we never walk alone. Yeah. But you can feel when you read those, the dark that comes with them.
Mm-hmm. The feelings that they can create in you, the emotions that you can create in you, and the stories that they will continue to create and actually embellish, because I'll keep circling around.
Yeah.
So she also, Beth, you want to tell us about these?
These are my favorites. Okay, so obviously this is the flip side of the coin, the for courage cultivating truths, because we know, all of us as Latter-day Saint women, as covenant daughters of God, we know how to find courage. Mm-hmm. So first is uncertainty is the gateway to possibility. Uncertainty is just the gate. That's all it is. Loss is natural, and I would say will lead to growth, can lead to growth if we choose it. It's a purposeful universe. Look at the plan. And we are all one. That's our core. That's what helps us to rise up and to move forward. And keeping those 4 things in mind will change your life.
Yes. So as you read them, okay, let's go back and read them again. But I want you to kind of just be aware of possibly when we read a statement, how you feel in your body.
Yeah, because I felt it in my body while I was reading them.
Yeah. So, and what you feel. So, the first thing, uncertainty is a gateway to possibility. What do you feel in your body, or even possibly a thought that comes to your mind? Just kind of be aware of that. Somebody have something to share?
Oh, are you asking for comments? Or are you just
Yeah.
responder?
Yeah.
Comment away.
This is another one, and sorry, my sisters who know my stories too well, but this is very brief. But I had an experience that I didn't understand when I was 18, and this is what it's making me think of. It became a pivotal moment in for me what my hardest day of my life was, and this is just so like this is what I look at when I think about this, because when I was 18, I had this experience. I have undiagnosed celiac, right? And so, but this was my first day. Somehow I got the worst migraine, and it was the first one. I lived with it for 20 years, and it was the first one. And so, what was really odd about this day, and I won't go into details about the experience, but God gave me this just experience that was so profound, but yeah, I didn't understand it. And He showed me very clearly that there was a dark voice that was going to tell me I can't do it. And He showed me very clearly that there is a light voice that if I turn to will give me healing. And it was so profound, and I won't go into the details, right? Because I don't think that matters. But what it left me with was like, what was that as an 18-year-old? And I remember practicing that because I didn't understand what to do with this experience. So for many years, I practiced saying, okay, that, dark voice says you can't, light voice says you can, but I didn't understand why. So I got to the point where probably in my life was the hardest day. And I think we all get these. It doesn't matter what it is. I feel like we all have one where I was in so much agony, pain wouldn't go away, medicine stopped working. I could see absolutely no way out. And I remember that day, my only choice was faith or no faith. That's all I could see. I could see no other way out. And so I look at these slides you have, because this was the place where I was pushed into an extremity, where I was at that place in my life. And I remember at that time thinking, I have two choices. My only choice is I am going to pick faith. And I remember that day saying that to Heavenly Father, getting on my knees and being like, I see no out. I choose faith today. And I remember when that happened again, I just had this a profound experience where the Spirit washed over me and brought me back to that day when I was 18. And I realized then there was a match. There was an exact match to the way I was feeling that day to where I had been in 18. And I realized that what God had given me when I was 18 was a vision of that day. And God, the Spirit showed me that. And because of that, I already knew the way out. And I knew the light in my path was to get on my knees and beg to God and have faith that faith and healing was going to come. And so I did. And I was given a miracle about a year and a half, 2 years later. But the story that changed in my life was profound, because what it ended up doing was leading to me to a miracle of healing that eventually came, and I could not see it that day. And so I appreciate your slides. I think they're so profound. And what it brings me back to is probably one of the hardest days of my life, where there was no other way but to look at this slide you have right here. And the story had to be told to get where I needed to go. So I just love your slides.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I love your stories too, and how it just brings the concepts here that I'm trying to teach just into like reality. I mean, it is. I also believe that if you have any type of like reaction in your body to any of these like bullet points, it can lead you to have like what you were talking about, like those remembrance of things that the Lord has taught me in my life, or it can give you like a clue of maybe an area that you need to discover more, to look into more. Did anybody feel any type of like when they read one of these?
I did. When I read uncertainty is the gateway to possibility, my heart had a leap of hope.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful.
It was lovely.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry. I just felt like, oh, the hopeful, like positive, like, yeah, it just felt good. I felt lighter.
Yeah. Like there's reason behind what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Instead of staying in these, this, the world's unsafe, it's hostile, there's no reason to do this, I'm alone, I can't handle this. You're living in that state. You've been able to change your story or look at it differently. I still sometimes, though, when I look at these, I will have something that'll go, ugh, because of what I'm going through right now. And so I'll be like, okay, so I need to maybe look into that one a little bit more, because I am not seeing with the eyes of faith, or I'm not being able to apply, some of the tools that I know, and also the knowledge and the truth that I know of how it would be better to navigate this, right?
So can I ask a question, Jen?
Yeah.
When you have that feeling, is it a physical feeling? Is it like a resistance? What do you mean by
it? I'm trying to help you. Like, sometimes those feelings in your body is your cue that you're having some type of a resistance, some type of a reaction and resistance to this. And so you can do a lot of different things with that. You can, exercise your faith, or I love how, the story of going back and finding in your life the story that helps you to shift it, because the Lord has already given you an experience. He's teaching you and leading you with that. You know what he did to me this morning? So I've spent weeks reading this, and also, in my life, because man, I've had some uncertainty, and I want to be more empowered in it. I want to change my story. I want to be different in it. And it's taking experience to do that. But so I've been doing my slides and everything. And this morning I get up, I didn't sleep well. And this morning I got up and I was just like, oh, this is going to suck. I was just like, and I had this story in my head, and I was starting to feel some of the feelings, and it was all the stuff and everything. And so I did what I do, and I sat down and I just prayed. And as the second I was like, oh, Heavenly Father, and everything, he literally poked me almost it was humorous way. It was almost like one of those, you're in uncertainty right now, girl. And I just had to laugh. It was like, your slides, you should be, and so it was really funny. And so the Lord will work with us when we ask him to be involved in this, and he will walk us through it. Because I will tell you, there were times when I would look at that first bullet, uncertainty is the gateway to possibility, and just be like, yeah, wrong, and not feel the hope that Beth and Carolyn were talking about. It takes experience. It takes, grappling with it, with yourself, asking for help with the Lord to, I believe, come to look at this in, as a hopeful courage state. Anybody want to add anything before we go on?
Well, I just had a comment that I've noticed that this experience with my sister, as I was resistant, and that why I was so much turmoil. And after we did the, I don't know, during or after the fast, and she was talking, and I didn't say this to her, but I just thought of that there's a scripture verse that keeps coming to my mind about Queen Esther, where it says, for such a time as this I'm not quoting right, but anyway, for such a time as this, that's why you're here. There's a reason. There's a, maybe will be an instrument to helping not only herself, but others, there's, and so I guess that's just something I thought of. And I thought of also maybe this experience going through with her will help me to also find and use talents that I can help her and help her to, so there's, like, I like the idea of much, letting go of just learning to accept it, and going with these other 4 things. It's like, oh yeah, there's purpose, there's hope, we can figure this out. It's just a whole mental shift that makes you just like, takes you from the dark to the light, like what the other lady said. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I love what you said, in bringing in the story of Esther with it, because I really believe we are Esthers in our own life, for ourselves and for others.
Great.
Go ahead, Beth.
Rachel, did you raise your hand?
Oh, yeah, you saw that, Beth?
Yeah, I saw
You know,
that.
I was like
and wanted
trying.
to-
I don't
Yeah.
see everybody, so thank you, Beth. Please
Yeah.
monitor Beth, or just
I'll monitor. I'm all
speak
good.
over me. Speak over me. Go ahead, Rachel.
No, I actually had a knee-jerk reaction to like I don't want it. Like that first
Yeah.
uncertainty is the gateway to possibility. Like that one was like,
No more
I don't want
possibility,
it.
please.
Yeah, and it wasn't, and the next one was a little easier, but like it's a purposeful universe actually is a really helpful thought to me. But I definitely like just being vulnerable in my feelings about what I'm dealing with right now. Like I definitely know that I have a resistance to like, what if I don't want it? Like,
Yeah. What if
You
I
know?
don't want any more growth?
Yeah. Or so I wrestled with the Lord on it's a purposeful universe, or it's a purpose. What universe, I'd be like, God has a purpose for what's going on in my life. I look at universe as God or Heavenly Father. I struggled with this one so much because I was raised in the church, but I was not raised in what I felt was the best family. My father was a narcissist. And so there was a lot of things a lot of neglect and emotional abuse and things like that I had to navigate and had to learn and had to change and everything. And I was angry that I was, born into this family. How, come on, they had the gospel. They shouldn't have done it this way. All this stuff, and granted, I've learned my parents did the best they did. They were a product of their families and things like that. They still had choice, but I still had my experience, and I had to learn and I had to see what was the purpose in my experience. And it seriously wasn't until probably this past year, and a lot of soul searching, a lot of walking with the Lord, a lot of questioning and tantrums and things like that, that I finally learned. And the Lord told me, this was for a purpose. You growing up in this family and having this experience, because my family is a train wreck. It is just like, wow. It was for a purpose. If anything, to bring me to a greater sense of love and acceptance for them and understanding them as children of his, but also what other purpose would it be? But it took a lot for me to actually accept what he was telling me, that it was for a purpose. So I have a problem with that one, or I had a problem with that one, and it can still give a little bit of a ping sometimes, but I'm learning to see all of my experiences. And I said, I'm learning. I'm not perfect at this. I'm learning to see all my experiences, my circumstances, good and bad, as purposeful, and trying to find in them, what is it that I'm supposed to learn from the Lord? A lot of it, I wouldn't choose to, because it's hard. I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to experience that. I want to stay here in my comfort zone.
Well, and I think this is just a practice. It's like practicing basketball. We're going to miss the hoop lots of times, as well as make several baskets. It's just a practice. Sometimes we're great. Sometimes we're terrible.
But just that we're showing up and doing it again and again and again.
Right. We're practicing. Yeah.
Wasn't it Hinckley that said, just do better tomorrow? Just do better. Was it?
Yeah.
It
I
sounds
think
like
so.
President Hinckley.
I love that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'll just better tomorrow. He's just like,
We'll just try again.
Just try again. Yeah.
Can I add just a comment?
You never have to ask, Andrea. We all talk over each other. Just talk.
Just talk, please.
Okay. I just love that. Like, if you look at the Book of Mormon, there's two completely different storylines, and I know we read this a lot, but you got the Lamanites who are down their track thinking everyone's evil. And you got the Nephites who have this completely different understanding about what's going on and about what the Lord is doing. And it's like so evident that there's two storylines. And I guess the only thought I have on this is like, I sure don't want to miss the second storyline, in my life.
Yeah.
And be so focused on my pain that I can't see that story that could be there if I could see it. And that just gives me a lot of hope that when I look at those two completely different narratives going on, and I just hope to connect with the good storyline that gives me purpose. Thanks, over. That's it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I love that because yes, when we do focus on the wrong or the injustice, the pain, how can we see the purpose, the beautiful, the gift? Hello, the gift
It
that is,
changed our experience
yeah.
completely.
Which actually is a good segue into my next slide. Oh, well, actually, not this one, the next one after.
I'm sorry, but that last statement on there, we are all one. Like, are you going to explain that a little more? I mean, that's just like, it's a new concept in this kind of thing. You're talking about us with God or us with the universe, or I'm just kind of wondering.
Now, I don't know what the author had in mind with that statement. Maybe Beth does because she's read the book about it.
She's kind of woo-woo in her universal consciousness kind of beliefs.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, it is all one energy that runs the whole earth.
I looked at it as we're all one big family.
Yeah.
We're all children.
Yeah.
And if we keep our like eternal, glasses on, or however you want to say it, there is a purpose for us being here. There's a purpose as children of God here. So that's kind of how I took that one. We're all just trying to do our best, get back home. But this wasn't the slide I wanted to segue into, but these are just some things that, because we were talking about the 4 courage assurances, these are just some things I just really like to remember. Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. And then another quote that I like about this one is, and it goes along with what was shared a little bit earlier, is with what one of you shared, is that fear and faith both ask me to believe in something I can't see. Yeah, they both ask me to believe in something that I can't see.
Yeah.
Which one is more empowering? And the quote went on to say, I choose faith, I choose Christ, I choose his way. So there's that one. And then this one, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is just getting up and doing it again. But what I wanted to segue into is this one. Somebody please read this.
I can read it for you again if
Thanks.
somebody. Okay. Instead of trying to live in uncertainty, to navigate uncertainty, live in curiosity. The state of curiosity is one of learning. And when we are in this state, we are open to all possibilities. We start to explore.
So if we can change our story, change our mindset, let's change that. I'm not navigating or just having to do this and be in this space, but let's explore it. To me, when I navigate something, I'm almost like a victim of my circumstances. I'm having to change with the wind, do this, and sometimes that's the best I can do during a day. But if I can explore instead of navigate my uncertainty, what does that look like? What does that look like when I explore what is happening to me? I think curiosity helps with that. Oh, I know curiosity helps with that. And curiosity to me is a leaning in to explore.
What's interesting for me anyway, is when I think of uncertainty, I feel very boxed and closed. Like I really need to be protected from something, boxed and closed. But when I think of curiosity, it just opens that exploration. You're just open and looking. I wonder what comes next.
Isn't it a change of your being state? Like you're saying, closed.
Yeah, it's a state of being.
Like confined, almost, to now I'm opened up. I'm going to look. I'm going to figure this out, or learn. I like that. That a learning state.
Yeah. I love your image, the little boy. That is so cute.
Our kids they're explorers. Sometimes not for their own good, but they're explorers. They're looking in there. So some of the curiosity questions that we can ask to learn to explore instead of being in those past ones, those ones that we saw before, is these. Instead of asking why me or the sky's falling, what if I just said, I wonder what will happen? Instead of creating all the different stories of the badness, I wonder what will happen. The best one for me is, what is the lesson here? Or in this, what am I learning? Or what does the Lord want me to learn? That's what what is the Lord trying to show me? What does he want me to learn here? And this last one is the one that I'm really trying to change. This one, I have so much resistance to this. I'm really trying to change this one, but what if it's going to be wonderful? What if it's wonderful?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
What if it's wonderful? And so sometimes when I ask, okay, so I'm having this, but what if it's wonderful?
Can I share just a little thing that I learned yesterday? It came from Susan Pierce Thompson's book, Resume, and I was reading it. She's talking about mindset, and she talks about the Stoics, that they have a principle they call amor fati, which translates to love of fate. Now, y'all, when I saw love of fate, I'm like, I'm not real excited about whatever negative fate is, right? But they translate it to a love of fate. Or as Marcus Aurelius said, to love only what happens, what was destined, no greater harmony. Susan Pierce Thompson translates it to this practice that she uses. And I'm fascinated by this new thought. Imagine you have unlimited power to create literally any reality you want. You have a genie in a bottle or a magic wand. Take this moment right here, this very moment. Love it as if this moment right here is what you would conjure up with your magic wand. Orient towards every moment that way, as if it were your perfect, self-chosen ideal. To me, that is the epitome of leaning in. Mm-hmm. Take your magic wand and go, yep, this is what I chose. Yep, this is perfect, Mm-hmm. It's just fascinating and really profound in my brain. I'm working on that one for a while. What if it's wonderful?
What if it's wonderful?
I have a thought about that. For some things, I think it's really hard to say, say that, what if it's wonderful? Some things like my sister, I think there's nothing wonderful in this, but
no.
I remember reading this book about a person who had a near-death experience. And the message I remember is that the whole purpose in coming to life is just to learn to love. Like, if I think like in the pre-existence, our perception is so much different. And that I think, at least this was the message of the book, and I like the message, that when we helped pick some of our trials, even because we wanted to love Christ, we wanted to learn how to love, but here in this mortal existence, where we see such a tiny little perspective of things, it's hard to see that purpose is to learn to love, and so sometimes it's really hard to think what is wonderful, but maybe if that's a way to think about, is to learn to love others, love ourselves, love God. Anyway, just a thought.
Sorry. I love that comment, because I feel like I don't understand that either. Like, I've actually been in those situations where my trial is super hard, right? And what I'm told in blessings or whatever is that this is given me to someone else. But I think there's nothing like being in this situation where a loved one is going through something incredibly difficult, and you're searching and grasping for every possible tool in your tool belt you can find. And at that point, to me, I'm like, my trials become so worth it if I have gotten any gem of knowledge, any gem of compassion that I have in my tool belt to give my loved one that's in pain. And it's like, I feel like then is when my perspective starts changing, is realizing maybe what Jesus was meaning when he said he went through what he did so he could have compassion. Like, I see someday in our future, all of us, loved one, children, child, niece, nephew, someone that we love dearly and desperately wanting to give them a gift, and being able to pull out our incredibly difficult experience and hand them a gift of faith. To me, change is one way of changing my story. So I love the comment that you just said.
Yes. In both of your comments, it brought to my mind my experience with a loved one. who didn't accept my gifts because she has no interest in anything spiritual, especially gospel spiritual. And she's going through an extremely hard thing. And how do I show up to help her? And Carolyn, it was just, and the Lord just told me, it's just, all you can do is love her. You can pray, but all you can do is love her. And that was a big learning experience for me. And maybe I really don't know how to love without an expectation of what's going to happen. Yeah, it was, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. And thank you for sharing also. I'm sorry. Was it Rachel? Who just spoke? Rachel. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
It was Andrea.
Andrea. Yeah. See, I don't see everybody's faces. And so I don't have everybody's names up here. So if you're new to me, I'm sorry. I apologize. But thank you, Andrea, for bringing that also. Carol and Andrea for bringing that in. Sometimes it's just love. And maybe that's your Esther moment. That's your Esther moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I share an experience also?
Please.
Speaking of extremely hard things, so sorry, I'm just in an emotional place, so I'm just probably going to cry.
That's okay.
Okay, because we all cry, girlfriend. We know it. Yeah.
So Jen, my good friend, how we even started being friends is I know she went through some incredibly hard health things that probably felt pretty awful to her at the time, and some really hard health things, come to find out. But when I was going through, I have eczema, and I'm on Dupixent now, so you can't really tell, but I was incredibly inflamed. My whole face was red, and I never knew. It was like such a depression. And everybody, my mom, my family, they would say like, "Oh, Rachel, how are you?" You know. And I was not okay, but I couldn't. There was nothing they could do, and I wasn't gonna, make them feel bad about it. So I say, "Oh, I'm fine," and I would just fake it, go about my day, just managing this real depression that I had with this uncontrolled. I was doing everything I knew to do, and I couldn't do it. And then Jen, I say like she saw to my soul. So because of what she went through, she looked at me and she said, "No, how are you?" And she saw me, and that was such a gift to me. And then, she went above and beyond to help me through that horrible time. But if she hadn't have gone through what she went through, which I know is absolutely terrible, she wouldn't have seen me the way that she did, because there was a million people around me that didn't. And I was so grateful for her and her experiences. And I remember it, and I want to be there for other people in the same way. That's all.
Thank you. Beautiful. These are just great and wonderful experiences and ways to learn about ourselves, others, and apply gospel truths. And it was what I love about this, so the stuff that I'm presenting is all from psychology. It's all from like what the world has put out. But isn't it beautiful that the deeper stuff, the applicable stuff, it goes with it, but it's the gospel, and how there's so much more there. And so I kind of going back to the first slide, it says the gift of uncertainty. The gospel really helps us with that. It's the gift on how to explore that point of your life. Just some other things that we're going to talk about before we get into some little exercises we're going to do about uncertainty. But uncertainty takes practice and awareness. Does anybody know what these pictures are? These are trail markers. One's the stacked rocks are called a cairn, and then the paint on the rock. Here, when I've hiked here in Virginia, there'll be like a paint on a tree, because sometimes you can't see the path, but they're markers. And I want to go back to what Andrea said before: spiritual memories. So when we're in uncertainty, the practice is the awareness that maybe we have been here before. So let's look for our markers on our road, on our journey, on our path. Maybe we've been here before, or maybe the Lord has put a lesson here. for us. Because let me tell you, I have shown up in certain circumstances just not good. But I have learned things, I have applied things, I have asked the Lord for help and everything. And the next time that that came around, or a similar thing, I showed up differently. Because I had the lessons from before and I had the experience from before. So exploring uncertainty, it does take practice and awareness, and we're not always going to be perfect through it or show up how we want to, but we just learn and do differently. And I love that spiritual memories. I actually wrote it down, big quotations. I'm going to be using that. Spiritual memories to help me navigate and not navigate. See, I'm trying to change my words to explore uncertainty better.
I just had a thought on that. I think it's Elder Anderson who talked about that in one of his talks. He said, write down your spiritual experiences so that when you're struggling, you can go back and read those, and that can give you that anchor or whatever encouragement.
And I like that too. And I also use, I rely heavily on the Holy Ghost, because one of his jobs is to bring it to your remembrance. And so there are times when I've been praying, I'm like, I will need this to be brought to my remembrance. I need that assurity. I need that help. So, we have all these amazing gifts and tools, like that our Heavenly Father has given us to be successful in this life. So exploring uncertainty takes leaning in. I wish Jacine was on here so she could talk about her leaning in practice.
Pretty amazing.
Does anybody, what do you think when you think of leaning in to uncertainty? What does that look and feel like for you?
I'll comment on this one, Jen.
Okay.
So I think in this process, we've had some real uncertainty and gone through a trial that we knew we would for the office stuff. It's a practice that when you're triggered, right? And so I've been conscious of these steps because it doesn't feel good to me anymore to just be chaotic and out of control and triggered, right? Like it's just not a place I love to be. I'm more aware of it. I'm more noticing it. Sometimes I can't control it. Sometimes I can. But I have my steps to take, and I will try to go back to certain blessings that I've been given, and this is just uncertainty in this. I will always use these tools now, right? Like I've built them in an extraordinary difficult scenario and had to, because I need to, I still want to take care of my family, be there for them, like do progressive things in a difficult situation. I don't want to just let it hold me, control me. And so I recognize when I'm triggered, and I've seen those around me we've been kind of working on it together. So it's just been but it is listening to the scriptures. It is going back to blessings. It's going through thoughts of what's past spiritual experiences. Okay, that did work out. I was told that it did work out, right? I've used that tool. I put the script. I can't tell how many times I listened to the Book of Mormon. Like, I mean, really, I listen to it for an hour plus a day, just while I'm doing stuff, because it will put me in. How is the Lord working? How is he talking to his children? What is his experience? How is he communicating with his children? If you listen to it on the hour span, you do see it differently than scripture by scripture, right? You see patterns like Andrew was talking about. There's storylines and patterns. Then I will use my friends for support. Then I will do prayer in time, right? I have to, in the uncertainty, I think that creating steps for yourself that work. My appointments with Beth, those are huge. I just know these things when I get to a certain place. And I think that I think that's, to me, everyone's probably a little bit different, but I think a lot of the tools that you use for what the Lord's given you are probably pretty similar, right? How he works, how he communicates. anyway, I'm just going to add that. One thing I want to tell about Rachel's story, though, is, she's talking about like being able to see in that situation for what you've been in. And that I knew I would help someone at some point when I went through what I did. I remember. And then like 10 years passed and I was like, and then I saw Rachel and I knew that was that person. But interestingly in the story, and I think a lot of people, this was such a moment for me, is she came to support me after, like, right, she went through her stuff, then I went through my stuff. And the support she is to me and to like everyone around, if you watch her, she just supported my sister-in-law to a place that no one else could. So it's really how the Lord works, right? And then so that's my point. She was helped. And then she turned around and helped me and all these people. And I think, man, the Lord, that's the masterful, right? That's the master working the light workers work. Anyway, that's my comment on uncertainty. I feel like I could see it because I get triggered so much in a difficult trial and I have to go and grab these things or I'm not functioning, right? Like, so anyway, that's just my comment. Like I could feel it when you're saying it. So I just wanted to tell my little short side of it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. What I picked up on it was your leaning in was action. Your leaning in was not running away from it or resisting it. It was trying to figure it out. I love that. Anybody else have any leaning in?
I had an experience just this morning. Woke up with a miserable headache. And last month, when we did the stuff on pain and on leaning into the pain, I was reminded of that with the headache. And so I took a little bit of time in meditation and saw myself as the witness of the headache and then climbed into it. It was really an interesting experience to lean in and to become one with, it was very central in one spot. And then to just allow myself in my breathing to get into it. And it went away. It was the wildest thing. I've not had that happen before in a meditation where it's just, I got in it and it was like, okay, this is what you need to learn. And then it was gone.
So your practice wasn't leaning in, yours was getting in.
Well, I leaned until I kind of fell in.
Yeah. It's like you were working with that you weren't resisting it.
Right. And I think so much of it was letting go of the resistance and just being with it. And that's Jacine. That's what Jacine taught us. Just be with it.
And accepting it for what it is and being with it and leaning into it. And that's why
so much of the pain was resistance.
Yeah. And that's why I had this picture of her arms out, like she's accepting all of it. I want to get this way with uncertainty. Just accept all of it. Just lean in.
It may take me a while to get to that point.
It's going to take me a while. But, piano, as the Italians.
Bring it on.
Little by little, softly, we'll do it. So are you ready to release your resistance and embrace the unknown?
This is Andrea. Can I add a comment here? Oh,
yes.
No, y'all told me I was supposed to just talk. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you are supposed to just talk, Andrea. You're doing it right.
Yes.
I love Jen and Beth's examples on the effort they've applied. Like the skill and thinking about it is really cool, and it's great to learn from. I think of, in a very simplistic way, the doctrine behind what we're talking about, and I love the story of Laman, Lemuel, and Sam and Nephi going back to get the plates because of in the Book of Mormon, because they all of them had enough obedience or enough faith to at least start on the trek. Mm-hmm. And the place where half of them dropped off is the place where there was no more visible path that could work. When we're pushed into the place where the only thing that is going to work are our gospel tools and our application of faith. And I feel like that's what both Jen and Beth were talking about, is at that place where Laman and Lemuel were like, nope, there's no way, we're turning back. And where Nephi went forward, to me, is the principles behind what both Jen and Beth are saying, is that that place of leaning in when every possible avenue, there's no visible way to go forward. And yet God teaches us we can, and when we apply these tools. So I just was thinking of that while they were telling their stories.
Well,
love the tie-in. I
yes,
love the tie-in.
love that you brought in those principles. Thank you so much. Yeah. In fact, as you were telling that story, I was thinking, even, I mean, because they were even chased. I mean, it wasn't just that, things didn't look like it were going away. They were like actively being pursued. I'm like, gosh, I wonder, how to lean into that. And so he taught us, Nephi taught us. So yeah. So thank you for bringing that forward for us to learn more from. Okay.
I just have one quick thought. So there's a chapter in later on in the Book of Mormon where, like, probably at least 10 or more times, this father's telling his sons, Nephi and Lehi, it's later on, remember.
Yeah.
And, remember God, remember their fathers. But the thing that came to me is, remember, there's always a higher purpose behind everything. There's always a really good reason we're experiencing this.
And isn't that part of those 4 assurances? There is a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, we can always, the gospel is there first, always have it. So thank you for bringing that out, Carolyn. So what we're next we're gonna do is I'm gonna lead you in releasing a resistance technique, because what I do. I want to give you tools that if you ever find yourself in a space where I'm really feeling some tugs, some resistance to what I'm trying to explore and move through. So we're going to do some imagery with this one, but I want to set it up before we get into it so that you can really explore this in your subconscious. So the image is going to be of you on a canoe on this beautiful lake. Okay. And you're going to go from one end of the lake to the other. That's your journey. So you're moving, you're exploring this lake, you're going from one end to the other. That's your journey, your life journey, whatever you're journeying through with whatever uncertainty you choose, or you can even like whatever trial, whatever issue I'm going through. That is what's going to be represented in your travel on the lake in the canoe. And the things that you're going to really get curious about is that you see the fishing poles. Okay, so I grew up with my grandfather fishing, my father fishing, and my brothers fishing. And when I was allowed, because I was a girl, when I was allowed to go with them, and we were on whatever lake or whatever body of water we were on, because these guys would fish anything. And I remember having this experience of being on the boat and being the girl and everything, and just keeping my pole in the water, just because I was bored. I didn't want to fish. And having my lure catch on something on the bottom and feeling it tug and actually slow down the boat because we were rowing, and being told, stop doing that, blah, 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 and not being able to unhook it. And so we had to cut my line. Okay. But I can remember that resistance, that drag, keeping the boat from not moving forward. That's what we're going to be working with this resistance. So I want you to think of the possible lures around what you're trying to explore. What are the lures that are dragging you in this progression? Because life is going to move forward. Time is always going to move. And your boat's going to move forward, but how is it going to move forward? Is it going to be dragging? Are you going to be feeling that resistance, that pull, because you have your lures in the water connected and slowing you down from not having the possibilities before you? And these are just some of the lures that I came up with that happened in my life. Being so focused on the need to fix it, that I'm just not letting it be, or letting the Lord help me see it. Being fixated on finding a solution instead of just experiencing it. Not wanting to feel the big feelings, fear, worry, despair, I will sometimes resist things because I don't want to feel them. It's too scary. I don't want to feel them. Attached to the outcome. I want my outcome. I want it my way. Yeah. Not willing to let go of my story or create a different story. It has to be my story. Need to know the end results. Oh my gosh, it'd be so easy to go through this if I just knew the end result. And how many times have I just asked the Lord just to tell me, I just need to know the end result. Well, there's no growth in that. And I don't want to do this because it is hard and painful. So these are some of my resistance, some of my draggings that I have thrown off my bolt. But I want you to think of yours in particular. And so we're going to actually go into that. Let's see. So let's go back. So I want everybody to go ahead and close your eyes down. And we're going inward. So take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. And I want you to see yourself walking down a beautiful path. And this path is beautiful and calm and safe to walk down. And at the end of the path, you can see in the distance this beautiful, calm lake. And as you walk towards the lake, relax, and things become more aware and more crystal in your mind. And you start to walk towards this lake, and you come onto your lake. Beautiful lake. I want you to look out across your lake. And just take a moment to see the water, to see what it looks like. There could be sounds there. You may hear things. Take a moment. It may be the water kind of up against the edge of the lake. It may be birds. Maybe a fish jumping in the lake. It may be the wind in the trees. What's the temperature? Is it a warm, sunny day? Or is it a cool evening? Just get to know your lake. Get to know your area. Get to know your environment. Another nice deep breath in through the nose and exhaling out. And look around. And you're going to find your boat. It could be a canoe. It could be a rowboat. Whatever you find is perfect and right just for you. So go ahead and find your boat. Your canoe to journey. Now you came here for this, in this scenario, in this lake for a purpose, and it's to understand and to gather information. You may not be consciously aware, but unconsciously, subconsciously, there's more wisdom and information there to bring to the surface. And so you're journeying on this lake. We're going to canoe or row from one side to the other to understand what is the resistance, what is the drag, what are the possibilities, the things that are keeping you from fully embracing this journey that you're on, this state of being that you're in about your issue, about your uncertainty, about what you're experiencing that may be uncomfortable or maybe not desirable, but it's life and it's your journey. So once again, all those lures that were cast over the side of the canoe as you started out, maybe you were aware of some of them, and maybe you weren't. So go ahead and push off from the side of the lake and start rowing. Now, some of you are going to experience some drag. Some of you are not going to experience very much. And some of you are going to be really aware of all of the things that are attached to the bottom of that lake that are slowing your progress, that's making it hard, making more of an effort to explore and get across, to understand. And the purpose of this exercise is just to make it easier for us to explore this lake, to get to the other side. So however you do this, to understand your lures, go ahead. It may be that you put your hand over the side and you find those lines, those fishing lines. Or it may be that you stick your head under the water and you see them. However you become aware of the resistance to this uncertain time in your life, go ahead and do that now. You may be aware of all of them and you may be not. You can always ask for the other ones to make themselves known. Some of them may be even attached to a fish. Who knows? Whatever you experience is perfect and correct for you. Explore these lures. Get to know the ones that stand out. What are they? Are they a feeling? Are they fear? Are they worry? Are they thoughts? Are they a statement? Is the next one a belief? Is one an attachment to the outcome? Is one or more a story? Be curious with those lures. Some may be big and huge, some may be little and small. And once you have discovered all of them, you now have a choice. You could continue across this lake with these dragging behind you, causing that feeling of being weighed down or pulled backwards. Or you can get rid of them. You can pull out scissors from your pocket, or maybe you can open up the fishing tackle box and pull out a knife. Or maybe you have a magic wand. Or maybe you just pull them. Who knows? But you are in charge here. You are in control. You have the choice to release all or just the ones you want to that you're ready to release. So go ahead and do that now. Take your knife, take your scissors, and just cut them and release that drag, that resistance, that weight from you. Let them stay there at the bottom of the lake, where they no longer serve, where they belong. Once you've done that, pick up your oars and continue across the lake and see the difference. There may be a huge difference, or you may still feel a little tug here and there, or a little pull, or a little drag, and that's okay. Whatever you experience is perfect and correct for you. And if you want to, you can go ahead and stop again and get curious about the lures that are still connected and still dragging. You can even ask the lures, why are you doing this? Why are you here? And see if the lure doesn't have some type of message to bring forward to you. Some of these lures can be huge and you may feel powerless against them, but you're not. If you have to, and if you want to, this is a great space and time to ask the Lord to intervene, to help you with those that you feel powerless against, and see how he shows up in your story. Sometimes it's the only thing we need to do is just ask him to be there to help us. He is aware. And once you looked at these lures, if they're still there, maybe it's just not the right time yet. Maybe you need to journey a little bit more on the lake, and that's okay. And some of you may already be journeying on the lake, and this is fine and great, and you're good to go. Whatever you're experiencing is correct for you. But know that you can always come back to this. Come back to your lake, come back to your boat, and ask those questions. Look at your lures. Involve the Lord in it and gain the understanding, the learning. Get curious about your journey. You're all doing a great job. So go ahead, sit in your boat, and with your heart, just express gratitude and express the joy and the love that you have for this lake, for this boat, and even for the lessons that were brought forward to you from your lures. And thank everything and everyone that showed up in this moment, this space, to help you, to bring you further understanding, knowledge, and even light. And when you are done with expressing your gratitude and love, when you're ready, just go ahead and open your eyes. And if you want to take a moment when you're done opening your eyes, this is a good time to write down your experiences, some of the things that came to you. So you can reference back and maybe think about that and see what else needs to be explored. And like I said, in the experience, you can always come back and explore again with your boat and your lures. You always have this imagery to do that. Okay, only because of time. I have one other exercise I want to do with you. We're going to kind of pick things up a little bit. Does anybody want to share with me what they just experienced with this technique? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Did it resonate with you? I mean, either is fine.
Can I tell you what happened with mine?
I would love you to. I'm like, please.
Because as always, it was exciting and very much cartoons. But I loved the imagery with the lines and the lures. And I had so many on the back of my canoe when I started out. There was excessive drag. And shortly after we were doing across the lake and we were moving across the lake, I just felt like I had to take my pruning shears. They're my favorite pair of pruning shears that I have. And I ran them all across the back of the boat and up one side. And everything cut bait. And it was like a motorboat that took me to the other end of the lake. Just boom, I was there. But just before I got there, I realized there were a couple of lines on the other side. And about that point of the meditation, you said, take out your scissors and cut those lines. And then using this image that you have on your slides, I was at the far point that you can see on the slide looking back and had made it all the way across and just sat on the bank and really loved it. It was a beautiful imagery. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
That was beautiful.
Thanks, Andrea. And I love what Beth just said, because I mean, first of all, I always learn from what Beth says anyway. So it helps me when I apply stuff. So I appreciate Beth, your experiences there. And I was also thinking, again, just drawing a principle behind what I experienced. About last year in Come Follow Me, I remember I was just super stressing in my life. What I tend to get stressed about, my lures and things I get stuck on, are when the Andrea Wagenbach doesn't get it right. Like, this is what I stress about. Like, maybe I missed some spiritual inspiration, or maybe I wasn't in tune enough in church, or maybe I missed some party I was supposed to go to and some person I was supposed to meet, or maybe this is like, I go on and on about my, like, some mysterious level of perfection that I need to get to, and therefore my problem isn't solved because Andrea Wagenbach hasn't gotten there. And that's where a lot of my lures are. And I remember in Come Follow Me, I had this like spiritual moment where God showed me my life, and I didn't have a miraculous, beautiful vision of wisdom of what I needed to do. I had this vision that Andrea Wagenbach always gets it wrong, always. And no, this is hopeful. Before
I'm ready for hopeful. I'm ready for hopeful.
Yeah, sorry, I did. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Before my miraculous moments in my story, Andrea Wagenbach was making a lot of mistakes. The biggest thing I always did right was my reaching for God. So I say this meaning, sorry.
You had me going there for a minute, Andrea. Yes, always reaching for God.
Yeah. So what I mean is, like, before I got diagnosed with celiac, I went on every possible diet you can possibly go on, and it was wrong because I never thought of wheat, right? Went off dairy, I went off everything. That's what I mean by Andrea gets it wrong. But my miracles were always preceded by these like huge reachings of faith to Heavenly Father and God. And what that left me with was this huge relief in my life, because it made me realize that Jesus is a person, and it's not some like checklist I'm trying to get to. I mean, yeah, we want to keep the commandments, right? But it's not a checklist. He's not a checklist, and it's not some like mysterious thing and what the atonement means, but he is literally a person that can reach Andrea Wagenbach where I am at. And the love that brought into me let go of a lot of like my anxiousness and that type of thing, where it kind of transferred to me just living in this love of God and Jesus, knowing he is my, like, what that meant, that he's a person and he loves me and he can help me in whatever point I'm in. And yes, I need to try, and hopefully I do get it right sometimes, but you know what I mean? And so like, I kind of cross what Beth said with that experience, because it was kind of bringing that back to me. And as I was cutting my lures, I was thinking of this experience, and I was like, where that lake that was beautiful really left me in is this place that usually helps me when I'm in my most difficult times, is where I'm so surrounded by love of God and just know he loves me and I love him, and we're in this thing together, and I can take his hand and he can guide me through, and I just love him so much. And it's like, when I am surrounded in that love, that was kind of where I got to with this visual that you did for us on that beautiful lake, where we're moving into our difficult spaces. And when I've got that bubble of love around me, it's so much better. So that's what you kind of brought to my mind as we were going through this experience.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's the Lord is your fishing companion. He's in the boat with you.
Yeah. Calms the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love about this, when I hear people's experiences, they're all different. When they get into that space of their lake and when they get into the space of their boat, like you showed us with your bubble of love and things like that. So it's to you, it's what you experience and it's what you're learning, and the Lord will work with that. And that's why I always try and incorporate the Lord in the imagery, because sometimes, you just need him there with you. With my imagery, he's always there, just kind of watch me to make, just kind of in the background. I don't know if anybody else has experienced.
Almost like supervising.
Yeah, he's just there, and then he's like, okay, when you ask me, I'll step forward or whatever. Yeah. So I do want to get this next one done. So let's just quickly get through this. Sorry. So uncertainty creates chaos in the body and in the mind. So it's actually a physical thing you can feel. It's in your mind. And so this next technique is actually one that I learned in my hypnotherapy courses. But before we get there, we're going to learn how to calm, be peace, be still. So once again, imagery of the lake. And I know, because Beth and I have talked about this a lot in preparation for this, but a lot of times in the scriptures, the Lord is teaching us how to be in uncertainty. Some of my favorite scriptures is be of good cheer, for I've overcome the world. I'm like, you're telling me to be happy during this? You're telling me, come on, or peace, be still. Be still and know that I am. So he's helping us a lot in what he says to have that state of being, because sometimes we have to stop and in the chaos, in the uncertainty, to really understand where we need to be, or to calm the crazy, is what I call it. I need to be still so that I can hear the voice of the Lord, or I can see, actually, it takes me out of the fight or flight. I can actually see where I need to be focusing or going. And also the youth theme this year has been my go-to scripture my whole life. Yeah. I can do all things through Christ. Yeah. So this next technique, like I said, and we did this last month with the pain, and this is called the spin, and it can be applied to physical pain or emotional pain or anxiety, which is an emotional pain. And so today we're going to do it again, and we are going to apply it to anxiety or distress or inner chaos. Okay, so I want you to think of what you're struggling with. What's your trial right now? What is your uncertainty? Okay, so go ahead and think of that. And I want you to think of where you feel it in the body. I want you to think of the anxiety, the energy of that. Because and I've heard it in a lot of what you have shared with me, there's always a sense of anxiousness or worry or fear. Okay, we want to focus on that feeling. Okay, so go ahead, think of what what causes you this, and I want you to be aware of where you feel it in your body. Okay, that inner chaos or that anxiety. It could be just going there in your mind. That chaos could be in your mind. It could be somewhere else in your body. But connect to that. And I want you to notice if there's any movement with it. How is it moving? Okay. And I want you to show me with your hand. Okay. Does it have a movement? So mine is usually like going all over the place. So I want you just to okay, so Cricket, I'm seeing Cricket do this. Okay, so there's some type of movement to it. Okay, there's Caroline. Yeah, okay, so there's some movement to it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of like this.
Yeah, it's like this. So it has some movement. Okay.
It's just, it's just a vibration.
It's a vibration. Okay, so look at that. Look at your movement. And I want you to look at it and I want you to see, is there any type of spin to it? Does it have a spin? It's okay if it doesn't. You can ask it. Ask that, like Caroline was this. Ask it to present itself to you in a spin. Okay? And I want you to take now that how it's presenting you the spin, and I want you to show me that spin with your finger. Okay. Okay. Good job. Keep it going. Okay. So I want you to imagine that. And I want you, with your finger, I want you to actually take that motion and move it out of your body. Okay. So you found it in your body, move it out in the body. So I want your finger to be way out in front of you. Okay. With that motion, with that spin, the spin it is showing you. Okay. Now here's the fun part. I want you to reverse that motion, reverse that spin with your finger. Just reverse it and keep reversing it. Make it go the opposite direction, moving your hand in the opposite direction. And when you have it moving in the opposite direction, I want you to bring it back inside your body. So bring it closer to you, bring it back inside your body, and keep it spinning in that opposite direction. Now you're already starting to mess with your mind. The way that your mind and your body has recorded that chaos or that anxiety, that inner chaos. Now, as you're spinning it backwards, I want you to think of the last time that you had that inappropriate laughter, that laughter that was just, maybe I should be laughing at this right now. That comes straight from the unconscious mind. Because consciously, you're trying really hard not to laugh about that. You know, you shouldn't laugh about it. You should stop laughing about it, but it just keeps coming up. Now, I want you to throw that laughter into the spin. You can stop with your hands if you want to, but just keep it inside. Throw that laughter into the spin. Now, this is a fun part too. Now you're messing with the chemicals of your body. Because we know when we laugh, we release chemicals. And now that you're laughing and the spin is going backwards, I want you to think about that thing that is causing that inner chaos or that anxiety. And I want you to notice what's different about it. This is called the spin. And you can do this with any type of chaotic thought, that inner anxiety state, when you're in uncertainty and you're just like that story. What did you guys notice? Did it change for you? Anybody want to share?
Right. For me, it went from this tenseness in my head and it became looser, and then it became like brighter and I mean, there was still a spin, but when you talked about laughter, it just like loosened everything up and everything was brighter.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Isn't that crazy?
Mine did not want to reverse. It was really determined to stay in that direction. And it was almost like pushing. I had to really just kind of work with it. It was very slow reversing it. But once it reversed and I introduced the laughter concept, I saw a troll doll. Remember those old troll dolls? And they actually had the texture of the troll doll's hair. So it was softened and it was funny and it was colorful and it slowly released all the resistance and made that. Yeah. The troll doll thing made me giggle. That made the laughter part easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my two imagery things kind of went together. And when you had talked about the beautiful lake, I tried to go there, but I ended up on this having a memory of a lake on with a friend and our 2 kids, and it was a paddle boat, and we were supposed to be getting back by a certain time, but the current of the lake was so strong, and everyone was too tired, and my friend had a bad knee, and so I had to like paddle as hard, and I was paddling as hard as I could, and we weren't going. Like I was in the same place, and just like no hope of ever like moving. And then, I mean, eventually, I don't know if the wind stopped or whatever, but eventually we were able to make it. But I thought, what if I had, like, it was kind of a circular, weird lake thing. What if I had just stopped? Like, what if the current would have taken me naturally right where I needed to go? If I had just stopped, maybe I was supposed to stop. And maybe I would have gotten to that place I want to go. If I would have leaned in, if I would have just allowed. And not being so set on, I have to do this. I have to do this. This is the way. There's a time limit. There's, this pressure of what needs to be. So my energy was there yesterday was a lot of just lashing out and anger and frustration because of how things should be and what people should do and the way that would have been so much easier. Mm-hmm. And it would be nice to have help and other people need to paddle. But I'm going to get there, and I'm going to make us get there, and I'm going to take control and get us there. And maybe I just need to reverse directions. And my direction was very downward spiral yesterday, really downward spiral. And instead, when I reversed it, it was an upward spiral that was leading more to, divine direction. And I was finally able to get on more calm lake, and I cut some lures, but there were some lures that I couldn't cut because they weren't mine. It was weight. Sometimes people can't paddle very well on their own. But I just kind of felt like the Savior will pick up that weight. And that's where I need him to be with me on my boat, because there's some weights that can't be cut at times that we carry. Anyway, that was my experience.
It was
So beautiful. So beautiful, Cricket.
Cricket, your inner wisdom is just so strong with you and teaching you and showing you. And I just hope that you take this and explore a little more about this uncertainty and what the imagery is and was teaching you. And I know you personally, and I know your strength in the Lord, and he will help you.
In the middle of the imagery session, I had to go out and tell my husband to stop trimming the lawn because the priests are coming. Because he had a heart attack 3 days ago, just to kind of throw in there. And he's fine. He doesn't have restrictions of all the things he's doing. Like, I'm in this session, and like, seriously, like, you have to have better judgment than that. There's 50 things you can do that would be very helpful and not like the opposite thing. That's sometimes I feel like I deal with.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Anyway.
No wonder you're having a hard time. Oh.
I do love the questions you're asking yourself, though, Cricket. Like, maybe I'm fighting against the current. Maybe I need to. So you're questioning your story, and I think that's very beautiful. And you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's after 36 hours of all the things we talked about on the list that are were the opposite. I did all of those.
It's a practice.
Those other things. And actually the thing that it came to, because at times I feel like there is only one place, and that is that it can go. But the scriptures that we're healing is just in Romans 8, where it just says, "For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you've received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, If so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together.
Just beautiful. Just beautiful.
Sometimes there's just suffering as part of the story.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I wanted to bring those first few slides of my story forward to show you that, life is 50-50. Sometimes we're really going to nail it, and sometimes we're going to be the sumo wrestler,
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just all about figuring it out. But I have no doubt that if we're in it trying to understand it and exploring all of the possibilities, the learning and everything, the Lord will show us, and he'll support us and sustain us through it. And he will give us our car igloos.
I just love that story.
He'll give our what?
It's so good.
What did you say? He'll give our what?
Our igloo out of our car.
Oh, igloo,
Yeah.
car igloos. Oh, okay. Yes.
Such a great story.
Yeah, it is good. That's awesome.
Well, we're past time. I want to just quickly wrap this up, but did anybody else want to share anything?
I just want to say this is beautiful, and I'm so grateful not only to be with you, but all of the ladies here. Like, I love just being able to talk through this on both the more practical level and the experience you have and the spiritual level. So thank you for that.
We do it every first Saturday. Andrea, you're always welcome. Always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this all up with that big bow of the gift of uncertainty. So here are some other tools for your uncertainty journey. Prayer. And I would even want to say all the other stuff in the gospel of fasting. We've talked about this. Priesthood blessings, temple. Oh my gosh, the temple is such one of my big, oh my gosh. Yes, it helps me put everything in perspective when I go to the temple. And all of the beautiful things in the gospel, the scriptures, everything. And then here are some of the other tools that I know we have taught and talked about that you can go back and reference. EFT tapping is great to release the anxiety, the thoughts, all the stuff about uncertainty, what you're experiencing. Sometimes, EFT for me is just being able to release what I'm experiencing in my body so that I can have that clarity of mind. Did that a lot at my father's funeral because my family went sideways this past January, and it was what saved me and got me out of, well, I won't say out of, but helped me to explore that experience a lot better. We've taught the self-hypnosis or meditation with a goal. That's another way to help. Journaling is big because I believe journaling helps us with those spiritual, what did you call them again? Spiritual memories.
Yeah.
The Lord has taught us about stuff. Essential oils. Exercise is great. Sometimes we have to move our body to get the energy and the chemicals out. Energy work, imagery, like what we just did. Creative expression. Sometimes we have to just go create something. Service and ministering. I love it. Lose yourself in service of others. There's huge teachings in that. Nutrition. If you're not supporting your body and your brain, you're not experiencing possibly the reality that you should be experiencing. And then, of course, professional help. If all these tools and all these things are only getting you so far, maybe you need to speak with a professional. They have skills and tools to help move past or through it a lot better. I know because I've done my own therapy. So is there an upside to uncertainty?
Well, definitely. There's growth. And it helps life not to be boring.
If life were always certain, you're right, Carolyn, it would be boring.
I think Carolyn nailed it.
Yeah.
You don't have growth. There's no growth unless you are out of your comfort zone. And what is that? You're in uncertainty because you don't know the outcome. Possibly.
It's the other 50. You've got the 50-50, and uncertainty is the other 50.
So I think a lot of success is just learning how to explore uncertainty, be successful in uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's going to be probably a lifelong exploration for myself. So, but yeah. It's just a few things that I want us to understand. I absolutely love, people do not like dandelions. I love them because they are a symbol of possibility and potential. The future is unknown, but then so is your potential.
Yeah.
I just had a thought that you said about being successful through uncertainty, but maybe sometimes we're supposed to be unsuccessful through certainty, because maybe our definition of success is different than the Lord's different of definition.
That's a good point.
Good thought.
Yeah, because in being unsuccessful, you do learn. It's that whole thing about failing upward. You know, you learn from every experience if you allow yourself. And then one of my favorite quotes. You want to read that one for us, Beth?
Sure. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings.
Trust yourself through the process.
I love the guy's last name is Wardle. It looks like warble.
Yeah, like what a bird.
Warbling bird. Yes.
I had a thought behind it. The Lord is the wind beneath our wings, right?
Yeah, he is the wind beneath our wings.
Yeah. He's the next little birdie sitting next to you, right?
That's right. Walking through life with you.
Well, thank you for coming to this workshop. And if anybody has any information or anything they'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you.
That would be great. Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much. It was so, so good. I think everyone you do gets better.
Oh, thanks.
This is like the best yet. Yeah. Just as a general announcement to everybody, a week from today is Jacine's global presentation, Moving from Grit to Grace. It's free. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be hosted on Eventbrite. All you need to do to find it, I've gone to Eventbrite, and it's event and then BRITE. Go to Eventbrite and just type in the search box, moving from Grit to Grace, and it will come right up. And you can get a ticket, and it's at 9:00 Central. No, it's at 11:00 Central, 9:00 Pacific time.
It's free. It's
free. Yeah. And it is going to be an exceptional thing. That's this Saturday. It's not going to be recorded. So if you have the time, it'll really be worth being. She's got it listed from 9 to 10:30 Pacific. So you can plan on an hour and a half.
Explain to them a little bit about what Rock the Stage is.
Well, Rock the Stage is a training program for young entrepreneurs to learn how to create. And it's a great big program. This is one of many, many talks that are happening that day. About 100,000 people are expected to be able to see these presentations. So it's a really cool thing for them to be able to have that stage global wide. It's going to be a big deal. And then the next week, so Jacine's is on the 9th, and then on the 11th, we'll begin U Week. And that will be every evening that week. And there will be lots more like what Jen just gave today. How to create peace in your life when you're not feeling peaceful, how to create confidence, how to create strength. Lots of goodness all the way through U Week. And we will have several teachers there. I know Jen Nelson is coming, and Alicia Carante is coming. Penny Pierce is coming. We're going to have a lot of good teachers and a lot of good discussion to be able to work through U Week this time. So if you have that week, again, that's on Eventbrite, and you can just look for U Week. Since it's online, you'll need to have the filter on for online presentations because it won't come up as a live in-person presentation. But it's right there.
Is Eventbrite, is that a website?
Yeah, it's a website. It's just eventbrite.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And both of the presentations, the Grit to Grace and U Week, are going to be in the online, the Zoom. Yeah. So that's coming up. And then we have a month from now on the 7th of October. That whole theme for
October is receiving because it's harvest season. And I don't know about you, but I grow a garden all summer long. And if I never went out and received what my garden gave me, I would be a really sad girl. So Jen's going to do some more imagery with us and some more tools on how to receive all of the goodness that's coming into our lives that we may or may not recognize. So again, 9 o'clock Central on the 7th of October. That's the first Saturday. Jen, you're amazing. Thank you all for coming. It was so good with everybody here. Andrea, come back. Amy, be sure
Thank you.
you guys just bring so much. And Rachel, come back. Yeah,
That was awesome.
it was great. We'll see everybody around.
Thank you,
Yes,
everyone.
thanks, Cricket. Bye, you guys.
Take me with you. I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. Now I am willing to make a choice. This new path.
Hey, thanks for joining us today in A Creator-Based Life. I hope you felt that compassion, mindfulness, and hope you came seeking today. You can find more of it at cmhcoaching.com or on Linktree/CMHcoaching. Of course, any social media outlet, we're there too. Because you felt the benefit and light in this message, please invite those you care deeply about to join us. Help us to create a ripple effect across the globe of compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Then we can create a creator-based life together. Have a great week, y'all. We'll talk to you soon.
To let go, I surrender, and I know I surrender, and I know I surrender, and I